After Ryan and Lisa came back for the birth of their baby, my mother-in-law coldly told me to leave. She said her oldest son and his wife would arrive in 5 days and that I should go. I was shocked and confused. "Leave?" I asked. "Yes, we don't need you to act like a mother here anymore. You're not needed. Ryan and his family will stay here. Please leave by tomorrow," she said. I always felt like I wasn't really part of the family since I married. Being treated as less than a wife, I never thought they would ask me to leave. She called me a failure for not being able to have children and told me I should be thankful for what I had. She hinted that Sean, my husband, was also fed up with me. I'm Patricia Crone. After hearing this, I realized there was no need to pretend everything was okay with my husband if this was all planned without him. My mother-in-law started this, but I don't care about what happens to the house anymore. I hope they realize what they've ignored for so long. I'm 48, living with my husband and his mother near a train station, which makes it easy to get to the city center. My husband, Sean, who is 6 years older and has been promoted recently, wanted a big apartment despite the high rent. Sean, who I met through a friend and married after 3 years despite my inability to have children, has always been kind. He has a son, Ryan, from his previous marriage. Sean asked me to live with his family and son, even though it was a big ask for someone who's never been married before. He said he'd make me happy and not let me suffer. My husband thought we should move to a big apartment where I could have my own space. Ryan, who is turning 8, wouldn't need much looking after because my mother-in-law was there to help. After splitting from his first wife, my husband's parents helped him with taking care of Ryan at their place. Sadly, Sean's dad died in an accident a few years later, and his mom started looking after Ryan full-time. Ryan was shy and didn't look at me much at first, but I thought it was just because he was getting older and maybe felt awkward. I was happy as long as they let me be part of their family. My mother-in-law seemed nice and polite when we first met, right after I got engaged to Sean. She acted so friendly I thought we'd get along well living together. She said she'd keep making meals and Sean often came home late, so it was fine if we didn't eat together. She told me to handle cleaning and laundry, hoping we'd work well together. After we married, I cut down my hours at the pharmacy so I could share in the household chores. I started work late, not getting home until around 9:00 p.m., but dinner was always ready. However, I usually ate alone since my mother-in-law and Ryan had their dinner earlier. Even though I was married, I sometimes wondered if that was all there was to it. But I accepted that this was just how our family worked. It became clear my mother-in-law didn't really like me or see me as part of the family. I tried to connect with Ryan, asking about his school events, hoping we could all go together. But when Ryan hesitated, my mother-in-law quickly said it would just be her and Sean, not me. I thought she was trying to be nice at first, but I was wrong. "I can take the day off work so we can all go together," I suggested. But she said there was no need because she and Sean had always been the ones to go with Ryan. I was really surprised. When I talked to my husband about it, he said his mom was very attached to Ryan and might think I was trying to take him away. He promised to speak to her about it. I started to go to school events as a stepmom, but Ryan and I didn't spend much time together. Sometimes I felt like Ryan wanted to talk to me, but my mother-in-law always interrupted. I later learned she had been saying bad things about me to Ryan, like I would be happier without him. She made it seem like I was a bad person, which could easily make a young boy distrust me. I was shocked because I never thought she would do something like that. After Ryan finished high school, he moved out to live with his girlfriend and left for college. Soon after starting his job, he married her quietly and moved away. Once Ryan was gone, my mother-in-law stopped doing any housework and seemed to enjoy making my life difficult. She stopped cooking and would wait for me to make dinner, even though I was not good at it. She would watch me cook and then criticize the food, saying it was terrible. She even said it was good that Ryan never had to eat my cooking. If she didn't like my cooking that much, she could cook herself, but it seemed like she just wanted to criticize me. It wasn't just the cooking. She complained about everything I did, from cleaning to laundry, asking if my family ever taught me anything. She made me feel bad about myself, even criticizing my family. In my frustration, I tightly clenched my fists. My mother-in-law often said harsh things to me, like questioning how I managed to win Scene's heart when she saw little appeal in me as a woman. She repeatedly blamed me for Ryan's departure, insinuating that if I hadn't entered their lives, they wouldn't be suffering from what she implied was empty nest syndrome, a term used to describe the loneliness parents may feel when their children move out. I tried to convince myself that if venting her frustrations on me made her feel any better, then I could endure it for the sake of family peace. However, her negative attitude towards me intensified with the news of Ryan's wife, Lisa, being pregnant. The joy my mother-in-law showed upon hearing about the pregnancy was beyond anything I had witnessed before. She was ecstatic about the arrival of her first grandchild, saying it was bound to be adorable because it was Ryan's. The excitement she and Ryan shared was understandable, but her behavior seemed excessive, especially after Ryan asked if Lisa could have the baby at our place, given the distance to Lisa's family home and their lack of nearby support. Following this request, my mother-in-law's enthusiasm knew no bounds. She immediately started preparations, from cleaning out Ryan's old room to listing all the necessary baby items. It was as if she was hit by a wave of great-grandchild fever. Naturally, these preparations meant more work for me. Coming home from work today, I was greeted with a list of tasks: vacuuming, wiping floors, cleaning windows, and even waxing them, all in preparation for a department store trip to look at baby cribs. The physical toll of cleaning and waxing late into the night, after already long days at work, was daunting. Any attempt to cut corners was met with demands to redo the work. To make matters worse, my mother-in-law began requesting money for the baby preparations, leading to our house quickly becoming cluttered with baby items. When I suggested that it might be excessive to prepare so much before Lisa and Ryan's arrival, and that perhaps we should wait to choose items with them, my mother-in-law accused me of being cold and uncaring. She pointed out that I wasn't related to Ryan by blood, as if that explained my supposed lack of interest. I tried to argue that it wasn't about not caring, but rather thinking that Lisa might want to be involved in selecting items for her baby. Yet my words fell on deaf ears. My mother-in-law's harsh judgment stung deeply. The accusation that I didn't care about Scene's grandchild was unfair. My intention was to respect Lisa's role as the mother and include her in the preparations, a sentiment that seemed lost on my mother-in-law. This ongoing conflict, marked by accusations and misunderstandings, only deepened the divide between us, making an already challenging situation even more difficult to navigate. I tried to make a fair point, but my mother-in-law looked at me with a sharp glare. I realized I might have been too blunt, and she left the room upset without saying anything. I thought about what happened, but I was also surprised by the way she spoke about the situation. The next day, she stayed in her room, probably still mad. Scene was leaving for a business trip and just shouted his goodbye through her door, telling me not to dampen her excitement about the grandchild since she's been different after Ryan moved out. He reminded me of our financial worries, but when I mentioned we should save money for when Ryan and Lisa arrive, Scene misunderstood, thinking I was criticizing his income. He left upset, and it reminded me how discussions about money always seem to end badly. Managing our finances, I've always planned for our future. Scene has given me a comfortable life, and he said my part-time job was just for my personal spending. I've saved everything extra, considering it's shared, even though it's in my name. But Scene's salary has decreased over the past 6 years, and with his company struggling, he's not thinking of changing jobs to maintain appearances. Now, I pay the rent while he covers our daily expenses, a fact we hide from my mother-in-law to protect Scene's pride. I came home early one day to apologize to my mother-in-law. She was waiting for me and didn't respond to my apology. Instead, she shocked me with news that Ryan and Lisa were coming back for their baby's birth, and I had to leave in 5 days. Confused and stunned, I didn't know what to say. "I must leave," she confirmed firmly. "Yes, we no longer require another motherly presence. Your role has been redundant for some time. Ryan and his family will be residing here. Ensure that you have vacated by tomorrow." Her words struck me like a thunderbolt, making it painfully clear that I had never been truly welcomed as a member of the family from the moment I married into it. Always viewed as an outsider, the announcement of Ryan's return for the birth of his child underscored this fact unequivocally. "You barren failure?" my mother-in-law persisted. "You were afforded the opportunity to partake in child-rearing. Be appreciative of that. We have no further responsibility towards you. It appears Scene 2 has grown weary of you. Perhaps he's already finding solace with a new companion." Shocked by her insinuations, I swallowed hard. The possibility that my relationship with Scene could be unraveling filled me with dread. Was this a meticulously laid trap I had naively walked into, assuming my husband's fidelity was unshakable? It dawned on me that, up until the previous year, Scene had never been away on overnight business engagements. Resolute, I declared, "I'll leave tonight," as I grabbed my bag and exited the house, embarking on an aimless stroll to soothe my tumultuous emotions. Despite the sting of my mother-in-law's words, I yearned to hear Scene's voice, to confirm his whereabouts directly from him. Yet my attempts to reach him by phone were fruitless. He did not respond to my calls. In a bid for clarity, I contacted his office, only to discover he had requested a few days off. The reality of my mother-in-law's allegations began to weigh heavily on me. Could Scene truly be spending his time away with another woman? As despair enveloped me, tears cascaded down my cheeks. I meandered through the streets, barely aware of my surroundings until a familiar sight halted my aimless wandering the tavern located behind the station, a haunt Scene and I frequented in the early days of our life here. "It's still here," I mused, stepping into the familiar warmth of the tavern. The owner's initial surprise at seeing me quickly turned into recognition. "Hey, long time no see. It's been about 6 years," I remarked, trying to bridge the chasm of time since our last visit. "Yes, it's been quite a while. I remember you," he responded, his acknowledgement bringing a small smile to my face amid the swirling chaos of my thoughts. Seeking a slice of normalcy, I requested, "Could I have a beer and a mixed plate of grilled chicken, please?" The tavern owner, a man of few words, nodded in agreement. In that moment, amidst the turmoil of my personal life, the simple act of ordering a meal I once enjoyed with Scene offered a fleeting respite, a brief escape from the harsh reality waiting for me outside the tavern's comforting confines. As I sat in the dimly lit tavern, the cold beer and the aroma of grilled chicken offered a brief respite from the turmoil that had engulfed my life. Glancing at my phone, the screensaver, a photo of us smiling during Ryan's 16th birthday celebration, reminded me of better times. Dressed sharply in the suit we had chosen together, we looked like a close-knit family. I longed for those days, the simplicity of our relationships before the chasms had widened. The beer seemed to carry away the day's tension, prompting a contemplation of the immediate future. Should I leave tomorrow as demanded? With a sense of purpose, I began searching for moving companies online, identifying one that could undertake the task the next day. My thoughts drifted to practicalities, leading me to also look up companies that bought unwanted items, bookmarking 2 possibilities. A simple action, changing the screensaver on my phone, seemed to momentarily clear the fog in my mind. The food and drink tasted especially good, a comfort in the midst of chaos. I decided to table further decisions until after I'd left the tavern's comforting cocoon. Upon leaving, a surprise awaited me. A young waitress from the tavern, breathless from catching up, called out to me. Recognizing me from the screensaver image on my phone, she hesitated before dropping a revelation that shattered any remnants of denial I harbored. My husband was involved in an affair with 2 of their employees. We exchanged contact details, her promise to keep me informed offering a cold comfort. The seeds of doubt planted by my mother-in-law's insinuations had sprouted into a stark reality. Rather than succumb to sadness, a fierce determination took root within me. It was time to face this betrayal head-on. Deciding to act swiftly, I arranged for a moving company to facilitate my departure. If this betrayal involved my mother-in-law and Ryan as well, then my ties to my husband were irreparably severed. Returning home, I spent the night packing, a physical manifestation of the emotional distance that had grown between us. The moving company was punctual, a small mercy in the whirlwind of change. As they removed my belongings, every item carried a piece of my presence, a presence now being systematically erased. My mother-in-law's panic at the unfolding scene was palpable, yet my resolve was unshakable. I'm taking everything I've bought. Tomorrow, you can start anew, I declared, my voice steady, a hint of mirth suppressed at her evident dismay. Her protests fell on deaf ears as I directed the movers to continue. She complained loudly, but her words were powerless to alter the course of events. The house was stripped bare of my influence, leaving only the baby items and her ancient dresser as silent witnesses to the end of an era. Well then, I bid you farewell, I said, my parting words marking the closure of this chapter of my life. There should be no trace of me left, so enjoy your life with Sean, Ryan, and his family. Leaving her in stunned silence, I placed the keys on the table and exited, the finality of the gesture not lost on me. The movers stored my belongings temporarily, offering a brief pause in the rush of change. I decided to stay with a colleague, a single beacon of stability in the turmoil. That night, as I lay in a borrowed bed, a sense of completion washed over me. For the first time in a long while, I slept soundly, my dreams free from the shadows that had loomed so large. A week later, the distance from those tumultuous events afforded me a clearer perspective. The steps I had taken, though drastic, were necessary. In that decisive act of leaving, I had reclaimed a part of myself, stepping into an uncertain yet hopeful future. After a while, I finally got a call from my husband. I was already wondering if he was involved in something with another woman. During this time, the young waitress from the tavern reached out to me with a message. She had taken a photo of my husband talking to another woman, not exactly young, at the tavern. It seemed like she wanted to do the right thing by sending me this after following them when they left the tavern. She also sent a photo of them going into a hotel. Seeing this, I felt any love I still had for my husband disappear. I got the woman's name from the waitress and found out where she lived. Armed with all this evidence, my husband called me. "Patricia, where are you? Ryan and his family are here. Aren't you coming back soon?" I told him no, I wasn't coming back because his mom had kicked me out and now Ryan and his family were moving in. It seemed Ryan and his family were struggling financially, bouncing between jobs and now working part-time. My husband tried to convince me to return, saying he missed me. But I told him I was fine and didn't need to worry about me. I mentioned how his mom and Ryan didn't like me and probably preferred having the place to themselves. My comment made my husband silent. He knew his family didn't accept me, but he had ignored it. He said he had something important to say and would come back to talk. A few days later, I visited the house for the first time in a while. There were new furniture and appliances. Ryan and Lisa barely acknowledged me, just nodding without getting up from the sofa. As I sat down, my mother-in-law stared at me fiercely, making the air heavy with tension. Ryan then accused me of taking everything from the house, asking how I could do such a thing when his dad had been supporting me. I explained calmly that I took everything because I had paid for it. I just did what you wanted by removing all my stuff, I said. You must think it's crazy, believing I couldn't possibly afford all those things with just a part-time job at the pharmacy, my husband remarked, looking a bit puzzled. Then he seemed to accept the situation, saying that we had been managing with both our incomes for a while. But then I had to explain further that Scene's job wasn't doing well, and his pay had decreased a lot. For the last 6 years, I've been the one filling in the financial gaps, and now I'm even paying our rent. My mother-in-law was surprised to hear this and looked at my husband. I clarified, I'm not just working part-time. As a pharmacist, I actually earn quite well, now even more than Scene. At this, my husband avoided my gaze, and my mother-in-law didn't know where to look. I then told Ryan that he would need to start paying the rent if he was going to live here. After all the support you've received, it's time you took care of things, I said. Ryan was shocked when I mentioned the rent was $7,500. Good luck, I added, telling him I no longer had any responsibilities here since my role seemed to be over. Ryan couldn't believe it, and Lisa was upset, asking, were we not supposed to live here for free? The thought of them covering rent and other costs seemed to surprise them. I couldn't help but almost laugh, suggesting they could always find a cheaper place since Scene still had a decent income. This seemed to calm Lisa a bit until I hinted about leaving Scene, especially with his new situation involving another woman. That's when Lisa broke down crying, and my husband was confused, asking what she meant. Lisa explained that she had heard about the other woman from his mother. It seemed like it was time for me to end my role as a wife as well. My husband seemed to think there was no proof of his affair, unaware that I knew more than he thought, and it hadn't even been 7 days since the whole situation blew up. I decided to leave the house. Mentioning Sandra's name made my husband realize I knew everything. He looked defeated, understanding this wasn't the right time for a divorce discussion. I'll be leaving now. If you want to talk, use a lawyer, I said. My husband, Scene, and Ryan didn't say anything as I got up to leave. My mother-in-law stood up too, angrily blaming me for everything wrong in the house. I responded, frustrated, reminding her that she was the one who told me to leave and mentioned Scene's affair. She had been meddling too much. I wished I had been firmer about my relationship with Ryan, not letting her get in the way. Ryan has nothing to do with this. Scene, you should be there for him, she said, confusingly trying to shift blame. If she hadn't brought Ryan back or hinted at Scene's affair, I would still be supporting Scene and this house. It was always her causing trouble. As I left the room, my mother-in-law was silent and shaking with anger. After that, Scene agreed to the divorce without much resistance. The evidence of his affair was undeniable. They soon started moving out, and Ryan and Lisa returned to their own place, leaving my mother-in-law alone. Scene thought about remarrying, but Sandra, his new partner, was upset about the alimony and didn't want to live with his mother. There were talks of placing my mother-in-law in a care facility, which felt sad considering everything she did for her family. It seemed like everyone was ready to move on without her. After everything that happened, Ryan sent me an apology letter acknowledging the situation. In his letter, Ryan shared how he wished he had been pampered more as a kid. He said he couldn't talk to me because his grandma didn't like it, and he was really happy when I came to his school events. It made me think that maybe I should have tried harder to connect with him. Perhaps then our relationship could have been better. Even though we're not close anymore, I still hope Ryan finds happiness. I'm back working as a pharmacist and found a new apartment near my job. I didn't feel right keeping the furniture and stuff I took from the house, so I had a junk removal service take it all away. Life is much nicer without my mother-in-law causing trouble. For now, I just want to focus on being happy for myself.